Hola culés! In case you were living under a rock, El Clasico is on Sunday. Big match, big results can have big effects on both teams. They're both in weird spots with Real Madrid scraping by against Juve due to a belly goal tap in as per usual. Barcelona in a very weird spot with as many, if not more, injuries than Madrid. And a lot of question marks, a lot of questions to go over today. First and foremost, though, I think we need to get out of the way with Barcelona's injury situation right now. So if we just see this right here, it gives us a pretty good idea of what's going on with Barcelona. Very not ideal. As you can see, Dani Olmo out for a week, Joan Garcia out for 2 weeks. He's the goalkeeper. He was my boy. He's playing great this season, and Szczesny will end up playing over him. Major loss, in my opinion. I think Szczesny is one of the key reasons why Barcelona have struggled in possession so much this season. And another one of the main issues why the press has been so ineffective, because Barcelona is just worse in possession. They're worse at holding the ball. And they give it away so much more often in weird spaces because Szczesny can't pick out his team, leaving Barcelona not necessarily in the perfect setup to then press the opponent's team. And hopefully having, Szczesny maybe playing a little bit more this season, he gets a little bit more comfortable. I think Barcelona's press has gotten a little bit better, but even against Olympiacos in the first half of that match, there were a lot of questions and a lot of things that were not answered, that were still very clearly, something's going on here, we got to figure it out, or else we're going to be in trouble against good teams. At least he can make saves. We saw him do it a couple times against Olympiacos, but their defensive record is still not great, but that's not what we're focusing on just yet, because we are going back to the rest of the injuries. Now, Ferran Torres is my next up here point to make. He should be back, and if he's back, I think he's 100% going to start, because there are a couple other holes in the front line. Lewandowski is out until November 2nd. Frankie de Jong, though, is back. Koundé is available. Now, I'm not sure how severe the injury is, but because of our backline situation, which I'm going to get to when I get to the squad building for both teams, I'll show you that I realistically think Koundé has to start for Barcelona, even if he hasn't been on the best form lately or what, because our defensive setup has a lot of question marks. And Koundé, though he hasn't been in the best form, as I said, should be a little bit more comfortable than other people. Also, another thing in effect is that Real Madrid dressing room is upset with Lamine Yamal saying that Real Madrid robs Barcelona to Ibai in whatever. He was like talking to him on stream or something, and he made a bet with him. If Barcelona win, then Ibai has to go to the next Clasico at the Bernabeu and wear a Barca kit. And if Lamine wins, he has to celebrate a goal in the next match with an eye celebration. And I think that's a pretty funny thing to do. But Real Madrid are upset about it. I don't really care. Nonetheless, Carvajal is going to talk to him, so he better be scared of that. Next is Rafinha felt some discomfort today, so he is going to be out. Huge loss, massive loss, monstrosity of an issue for Barcelona, because the front line has had just so much to do, and it just has not been perfect by any means. Big hit. We're going to talk about that more in the squad builder. Hansi Flick won't be on the sidelines because he is banned for getting the red card for one of the most ridiculous situations ever, but it is what it is. Now, for Madrid, Howson is recovered and will be able to play. Now, he's coming back from a longer injury than like Koundé and Ferran Torres, so I believe he will not start and probably won't play unless they're like desperate at the end of the game and Eder Militao goes out or something. But that is a problem because he is very good, though I don't think they would risk him just yet. He's very important to the squad, and Asensio and Eder Militao have not been that reliable over the past few years when it comes to injury, especially Militao, obviously. Now, this is a conversation that we'll get into in squad building between who's going to start on the right wing for Xabi Alonso, because they're not sure. Carvajal is back. Huijsen and Trent Alexander-Arnold are back for Real Madrid. Now, it's not a perfect situation for either one of these teams. A lot of injuries on both sides where no one's really exactly sure how they're going to perfectly set up, and it makes it exacerbated a little bit when the results for both teams haven't been spectacular. Now, yes, Barcelona won 6-1 in the midweek against Olympiacos, but there was a red card that was very unfair, kind of poor refereeing that went Barcelona's way, and so Barcelona took advantage of that and ended up playing well. But it wasn't a great performance by any means. Struck a scraped by against Girona, obviously lost to Sevilla 4-1 in one of the worst outings that I have seen in years. Played terribly, lost against PSG in, where there was 30 minutes of probably Barcelona's best football, and then followed by 60 minutes of some of their worst football in years as well against PSG. But it's still only losing 2-1 to the team that just won everything last year is not terrible in any way. Then beat Real Sociedad 2-1 and just have been conceding a lot, not scoring wonderfully. Well, Real Madrid are not clicking the best that they have been, especially not recently. Beat Juve 1-0 where it could have easily been a draw, and Juve could have scored as well. Same against Getafe last weekend, where Getafe had a sitter at the end of the game, which they missed after receiving a red card, going down to 10 men, and still almost coming back in one of the weirdest refereeing. I don't just think it was a red card, I think it was a clear yellow for where Vinny got hit in the face and went down like he was, punched in the throat. But whatever. It was what it was, and Real Madrid won. Then Real Madrid beat Villarreal. Before that, their biggest result that I think we can pay attention to is their 5-2 loss to Atleti, where Julian Alvarez had one of the greatest games I've ever seen. Now, the difference there is that Julian Alvarez was on, and I think Real Madrid are absolutely susceptible to big moments, to good teams, and definitely concede chances. We saw Dusan Vlahovic miss a couple of chances against, and Kenan Yildiz miss for Juve. So that tells me Barcelona will get chances. If they finish like they did in the second half against Olympiacos, I think they're set. The reason I don't believe they're going to do that is because their front line their setup is probably going to look something like this, where I think Rashford, Ferran Torres, and Lamine Yamal are going to be the starting three. Lamine Yamal obviously is around, is healthier than everybody else, and so will definitely start on the right wing. We desperately need him as well. Ferran Torres hasn't played, but I think they're really going to try and they would force him back, in my opinion, because Lewandowski is out, and we've been finishing our chances pretty poorly when it gets really tight. Thankfully, Rashford was really good against Olympiacos, and as was Fermin Lopez, but that's part of the reason I think, for me, Ferran definitely has to start, because it gives a little bit more strength here than it would if the other option comes up, which would, in my opinion, be Pedri moving for Fermin, and then Fermin being swapped out for Casado, at which point Fermin plays up here for Ferran Torres, and it looks more something like this, which I feel like is a much weaker lineup, in my opinion, than having Ferran Torres in there. But obviously, it depends on who is healthy and who is around, though I think the amount of rotating they did against Olympiacos, it could be very dangerous because, again, Real Madrid's attack or defense hasn't been great. They've been conceding some goals. They're better than Barcelona, but they leave gaps, and Courtois has saved their asses, especially against Juve. Hopefully, Barcelona can exploit that a little bit better, and maybe Lamine gets his shooting boots back, and you never know what's going to happen there. Now, get to the midfield. I think this is the best midfield that we could possibly have. I also think that it might not happen. So Frankie de Jong just came back from gastroenteritis, though I don't think it's that deep. I think he'll probably be fine and he'll probably start. Pedri has to be there. And for me, I think this is the best starting, front six that we could ask for. And I am almost certain this is what's going to happen as long as Ferran Torres is healthy. Now, the back line is why I spoke about Koundé having to start, is because Christensen is kind of back, but has been out semi-injured forever, and so I'm not exactly sure if they're going to trust him to start in a big match like this when he hasn't really been starting, and that would have to be the case if Koundé is going to be out. He'd have to play here, and I just really don't think they're going to risk him. I think they'd rather put out someone they're probably a little bit more confident in Koundé and start Eric Garcia and Pau Cubarsí at center back. Neither one of them have been spectacular this season, making a lot of mistakes. I think Pau Cubarsí specifically has really suffered since Inigo Martinez has left, because, he lost that leadership that he was used to. Ronald Araujo hasn't been as consistent, though I have seen some rumors that he might play, in which case Pau Cubarsí will be moved to left center back and Araujo will play right center back. I think that's too risky, man. His decision-making has been just too poor. And I like him at striker. He's just quite the striker. So that's sarcastic a little bit, but right now, I think we need to be comfortable, and they need to put out something that they've run a little bit more, and that would be this right now, right? And then you obviously Bale at left back. He's better than Gerard Martin. He has looked a little bit better and is getting more and more comfortable over the few matches that he has played this season, and looks to be becoming that player that we've seen before. Hopefully he stays that way, and he stays that way soon. Szczesny definitely going to be starting at goalkeeper this match because Garcia, who we were all hoping would be coming back, is not ready and he's not available, and that's going to leave us in a little problem, especially in possession, where Barcelona are susceptible to pressing and aren't getting out and getting in healthy positions as much as possible, as much as they were earlier in the season, because Szczesny is not good with balls at his feet in the same way that Garcia, even Ter Stegen, is. So we'll see how that develops into this match. I do think Real Madrid are not the best pressing team and won't be the best drilled, especially with guys like Mbappe and Vini Jr. up front, who really only press well when they are super motivated too, which only happens right after they score a goal. So if you can keep that from happening, right? If you can keep their energy down, or maybe they score early, you sustain, I can feel like that can be an issue for the two of them. The only time I ever see them getting that intense, like I said, is right after they score. But speaking of Real Madrid, this is how I think they are going to line up tomorrow, or Sunday, I should say. Vini Jr. on the left, Mbappe through the middle, and Mastantuono on the right. Now, he could be swapped out for Brahim Diaz. I think it should be Rodrigo, but from what I've seen, Xabi Alonso prefers Brahim. He's started in the last match, started the match before that, and I think he's more comfortable with him. Franco started more in the beginning of the season, but Xabi Alonso has kind of just thought, I think he thinks otherwise, so I think it'll be Brahim Diaz or Mastantuono. It could be either one. I think Mastantuono is more dangerous, but I think Brahim Diaz links up a lot better, will probably press more cohesively with the rest of his team, especially if the likes of Arda Güler are out there, who is definitely a possibility, but Mbappe and Vini absolutely are going to start. And in the middle, Tchouaméni, Bellingham, and Valverde are almost certainly what he's going to throw out there. He could also throw out Arda for Tchouaméni, and there's a chance Tchouaméni could play somewhere else, but I think if they're going to play a little bit safe, which I do expect them to against Barcelona, it will be Tchouaméni for Arda. But again, Bellingham is starting and Valverde is starting as well. Now, there's also a chance that Dani Carvajal is not necessarily in starting form, in which case Valverde will be moved there and Tchouaméni will be moved into the midfield, and it will look more like this. Now, I think I'd rather see Carvajal here on the right back, because I think he's probably less good as a right back than Fede Valverde is, especially against fast players like Rashford. He won't be able to do, especially coming right off injury too. I want him to come in. I don't think, though, I'm not certain he'll start, in which case, like I said, Fede will play there and Tchouaméni will play there and Arda and Bellingham will play in the middle. Now, if I'm Xabi Alonso, I'm starting Arda Güler. I think he's been really good. I think Tchouaméni's been a little inconsistent, been playing at center back a lot, which is also something we could see, though I think we're going to have little criminal boy over here and Eder Militao starting almost certainly. They played against Juve. They did pretty well. Eder Militao struggled against Vlahovic a little bit. It's too bad we don't have a physical presence like that. It would be really nice to have just some big body like Sorloth or somebody who can really manhandle Militao, because he seems a little bit susceptible to it. He got very frustrated with Vlahovic. I think that frustration is really healthy. However, he got outpaced by Vlahovic at one point as well, which gives me a lot of positive feelings about having Rashford play up front. I think he's dangerous. I think he's been clicking and he's feeling good. Put out some really good quotes in the media recently, and I think that could be good as well. Now, I should mention Trent Alexander-Arnold is also available, though I think it would be silly to start him, honestly. I'd rather play Fede Valverde there. He's just not good defensively. I think there is enough attacking prowess in this team, especially with Bellingham and Arda and Vini and Mbappe up there, that bringing in Trent is kind of unnecessary unless you're frustrated, can't create, at which point you probably bring in Trent. And that's what I would expect to see if Barcelona are leading going into like the 70th minute. I think Carreras is absolutely their undoubted starter here. They got him some rest against Juve by bringing in Fran Garcia, and I think Garcia is significantly worse than Carreras, but Carreras has had a pretty solid season, looks good, looked decent against Lamine Yamal too for what is it, Benfica or Porto? I get them confused. I think it was Benfica last season, so I think that'll be an interesting matchup to watch, to keep your eye on. I think Lamine Yamal is not in the best form, and I wonder if he'll have his shooting boots on, and what kind of Asensio and Militao we will see is important. Courtois is going to be on his game, going to be spectacular. But again, a lot of questions in this team, especially defensively. I don't think they're perfect. I think they've been bailed out by Courtois a lot, very significantly, and chances will be created. It really depends, in my opinion, how good at finishing Barcelona's forwards are. They're going to create some chances, but they've created chances in a lot of past games, and they have not completed them. Same goes for these guys, though. Vinny has not been his best this season. Mbappe has been better, but again, statistically, he's not nearly as good as his stats make him out to be. If we go on over to FB Ref, we can clearly see that I think half of Mbappe's goals this season, it doesn't want to load, but yeah, half might be more than half of his goals this season, at least in La Liga, came from penalty kicks, not in La Liga. Okay, he has 2 for 10 in La Liga, but I think he has 3 pens in the Champions League, and that's really, really something when people are applauding him as this, candidate for the Ballon d'Or, when in reality, he only has 10 goals in all competitions in 12 matches. And so not the best, but again, good. He's still Mbappe. I'm not trying to downplay the player he is, but not as wild statistically as I think a lot of people are making it seem, because he has scored so many pens. That being said, Barcelona are probably going to concede a penalty for tomorrow. Not only because the referees like to call them for Madrid, especially against Barcelona, like they did last year, and there's going to be bad refereeing. We need to expect that. But I do think that they're probably going to have a pretty similar share of possession. They're going to both get into the box. They're going to both create chances. In my opinion, Barcelona are going to get the worst of the referee calls, because that's how it's been in all of last season, despite Barcelona playing better. And you never know in La Liga. These referees are so terrible, but because Real Madrid are the ones that put pressure on them, we'll see how that plays out. Obviously, hopefully, I'd love perfect refereeing, or maybe if there's no referee on the pitch, that'd be great, because we know Militao is going to be pulling down Ferran Torres the whole time, probably not going to get called at all. And then Eric Garcia is going to have his arm out and get up and concede a pen. Or Kubarsi is going to go for a saving tackle and barely scrape Mbappe, and he's going to throw himself to the ground like him and Vinny Jr. have been doing like crazy. Keep your eyes on that, but we'll see what happens, boys. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be a good matchup, probably the most fair matchup we've seen in a long time. I don't think either team are running on all cylinders right now, but I think that's okay. I would rather have an even game that's going to be exciting and competitive and make people watch than something that's not. I don't think it's going to be defensive masterclass, that's for sure, and hopefully we get goals and we see what happens. Visca Barca, obviously, I'll give a little prediction here. I think it's going to be 3-1 Barca. I think Real Madrid are going to get frustrated. Barcelona are going to finish their chances, though not create nearly as much as we would hope, and we would have expected them to last season. 2 from Lamine Yamal, 1 from Rashford, and 1 penalty for Mbappe. That's my prediction. Let me know what you guys think, and let me know what you guys think are going to happen to this game. And I'll see all you guys on Sunday. Visca Barca, boys.